Well, hello, everyone, and welcome over to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I am your host, Matt Tardio, and today's episode is being brought to you by Oracle. Yesterday, the New York Times released an opinion article. This one, as a matter of fact, right on your screen. 65 doctors, nurses, and paramedics, what we saw in Gaza. It's written by a Dr. Feroz Sidwa, who we'll get into here in just a sec. And it starts off going over his experiences when he was in Gaza, what he did. And then it also talks about some of the different things that he saw. And notably, right up front, he said, nearly every day I saw a new child who had been shot in the head or chest, virtually all of whom had gone on to die. And then they provide these pictures down below after quoting somebody else that says, yeah, every single day, according to another doctor that had been there. Now, these x-rays right here reportedly are being provided by one of these statements. Her name is Dr. Mimi Saeed, and we're going to be talking about her in just a second as well. As she worked in Khan Yunis, proclaimed from August 8th to September 5th. Now, that is an extremely important date, which we're going to touch on because the IDF actually started combat operations in Khan Yunis for a third time on August 9th and wrapped them up on August 30th. This opinion piece goes through and it details in about 1,000 different steps on what the IDF has been doing to the poor, innocent Palestinian people, shooting children in the head on a daily basis, sniping them, and providing pictures like these ones up on your screen as intended proof. These again came from Dr. Mimi Saeed, who worked in Khan Yunis during the third freaking battle that the IDF was just in over there. So these presumably would be fresh photographs of Israeli snipers, soldiers shooting these individuals. But is it necessarily true? Well, in my opinion, no. And I'm going to go ahead and explain to you why I think that using actual facts, things like ballistic coefficients, muzzle velocities, actual engagement ranges that they have inside of Khan Yunis, so on and so forth. But more than that, we also have some ballistic dummy tests that are being conducted at different ranges. So if you've never actually seen these things, they're going to be more realistic than you would think. And here is an example one of a 5.56 fired from an scary AR-15 into a simulated human torso. Not really. I mean, that was absolutely ridiculous. That wasn't a 5.56 round fired into a human torso. But we do have some that are coming up here in just a sec to show you guys what those actually look like. It's not like that whatsoever. It's essentially like taking an ice pick and stabbing it through something. You know, the common weapon system that the Israelis carry over there is the M4. You see a lot of them in all sorts of different combat videos by the IDF of them running around with M4s over there, utilizing the green tip ammunition. Now, with that being said, what does that actually matter, and why? Like, how does it pertain to what I'm talking about? Why do you need to know that in order to understand what this article is claiming? Because that is the primary rifle and primary round being used by Israeli defense soldiers inside of Gaza. For reference, this is what a simulated head, okay, all of that is like synthetic bone material, gel, all of that stuff to replicate the inside of a human body, even including blood. Now, this thing was taken, shot on with the M855 ball at about 500 yards for reference. Let me get this up right over here. As you can see, that's the exit wound from that sucker. The only thing that wasn't included in this description is barrel length, which I would need to know to get the full velocity, but really it's kind of irrelevant because even when fired from your standard M4, which has about a 14-inch barrel, it has enough energy or enough muzzle velocity when it comes out to remain supersonic at well above 600 yards. So according to the U.S. Army, the muzzle velocity of that particular round fired from an M4 is 2,841 foot per second, and it has a ballistic coefficient of 0.151 on the G7 drag scale. Why is that important? Because it tells you how good that projectile is at flying through the air and overcoming air resistance. Ballistic coefficients used in a couple different things, but particularly in projectiles, we look at those as how accurate is it going to be, how much muzzle velocity is it going to retain in flight, how much is it going to be affected by the winds, density, altitude. There's a lot of things that go into it. I don't want to have an entire ballistics class, but those two main things right there, the ballistic coefficient and the muzzle velocity, in conjunction with density, altitude, will give you like your projected or your assumed velocity at specific ranges, because the moment it leaves the muzzle, it starts to dissipate its energy amongst the air, starts to get pulled down towards the earth via gravity, and the whole thing gets blown around and slowed down. But what does that mean? What does it look like? Why did I even bother putting up that picture on the screen of the other head? Quite frankly, it is literally impossible to take a headshot on somebody at a distance in which that projectile is going to remain inside of the skull or within like any, I guess, form of the head whatsoever. I've actually seen some of these projectiles ride up people's arms. They'll ride the bone and they'll end up blasting out the other side of the bone. I've shot, truthfully, a lot of people with this particular round. Even when shot in really dense areas like the hips that have massive bones, it will go through and through, even when you're shooting them at a distance of 300 meters or so. Yet it'll still blast completely and totally through there. Chest, you're pretty much guaranteed a through and through, and a head, absolutely you are. And why is that? Because this round was designed to penetrate body armor and cover the individual's hide behind. As a matter of fact, when the U.S. Army was looking at adopting this round, one of the stipulations for this particular projectile was penetration. Same thing with the rifle itself. That's something we're always looking at to make sure that we can effectively take the fight to our enemies on the battlefield, even if they're wearing body armor. Now let's get back over here to these pictures. So important thing to note before we even get into that, I know we already talked about muzzle velocity and ballistic coefficient, but the other thing to note is that in M4, shooting the M855 is roughly expected around 4 minutes of angle of accuracy. That means at about 100 yards, you're getting about a 4-inch shot group. So the best that you can expect that rifle to shoot at 100 yards is about 4 inches. Further, that multiplies every 100 yards. So if you're at 100 yards and it shoots a 4-inch shot group, at 200 yards, it's going to shoot an 8-inch shot group. At 300 yards, it's going to shoot a 12-inch shot group. Why does that matter, ladies and gentlemen? Because the average adult head is roughly 8 inches in diameter. I'll say that again. The average human head is roughly 8 inches in diameter. That means if I had an 8-inch steel plate at 200 meters shooting an issued M4 with M855, okay, that NATO standard ammunition, and had it center mass of the head, I could expect a deviation 4 inches to the right or 4 inches to the left side of that skull. AI might be the most important computer technology ever. It's storming every industry and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offering one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing. And of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber 8x8 and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/STT. That's oracle.com/STT. Oracle.com/STT. That means that I run a huge chance of missing. I'm likely going to wing if I'm lucky at all, and that is with perfect alignment of the freaking stars. No wind, nothing's crazy. I have good shot placement. I can get a perfect headshot, hopefully, at 200 yards on a full-grown male. But what happens when we start looking at a child? Well, as you guys know, the older they are, the bigger they get. The younger they are, the smaller they are. You can easily expect, okay, between a 5-inch to an 8-inch skull on a child, presumably, at least one that's running around, right? Now, with that being said, when we talk about the 8-inch plate, we're talking about an 8-inch plate up over on the range. We're not even talking about a moving target in a combat environment shooting off of, improvised rest positions or improvised barricades, something that I could brace my rifle against and hope to hit, all right? Plus, your standard soldier that's carrying these rifles are not that great of shots either, okay? Marksmanship standards are pretty dang low. So what this article is alleging is that somebody is using this particular rifle in order to headshot children right, out inside of Khan Yunis, and that the bullets are stopping in their head. That is what is being presented in this article. And as a matter of fact, they bring in numerous other doctors to state it, with some of them even saying that they believe some of these kids were executed, which is wild to me, that they're going to end up bringing that up, because these rounds would not remain inside the body. And with a new body appearing every single day, even at that, I would be really surprised to see multiple of these projectiles actually sticking inside of a child's skull like that. Even if they're ricochets, which is going to be everybody's next question. So typically when you have a ricochet, it's going to hit something and it's going to fly off, i.e. it's going to deform. Well, if it's going to deform, then why aren't we seeing that on these x-rays? Now, the only other possibility, because those rounds are oriented pretty much up and down, minus the one here in the center. So this one is oriented up and down. This one is oriented generally up and down. This one looks like it entered in from the back and stopped right up over by the neck. So with all of that being said, do I think that those are direct fire engagements from the 5.56 NATO munition? No, I do not. As a matter of fact, even looking at these, depending on the angle, you know, the projectiles are going to vary in size as well. But I don't even want to get into that and how young some of these people may appear with these projectiles lodged inside of them. Like this one on the right, for example, I mean, I would put that kid at like 5 years old, honestly, maybe 3 or 4. I mean, not very much, just based on the size of the projectile to head. So, I mean, we're talking ahead, you know, about yay big. I mean, good luck getting that shot group. But what ends up happening over there a lot is you do get some celebratory fire. You do get a lot of people shooting into the air. And with that being said, it goes up and it does come back down, and it does have enough velocity in order to penetrate and to kill. Only at that point in time, it's not going to, blast entirely through a body, and you could have it lodged in several different locations. You're not going to get a lot of deformation or anything like that inside of the x-rays either. Just based on that information alone, no, I don't think it's probable that it goes in. But I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm actually going to take you over to the author, and we're going to look and see what the author of this article has actually written in the past. And then we're going to look at the individual that provided those photographs, because both of them are extremely interesting in anything that they have been saying in the past. For example, this video that I'm about to show you came from April of 2024. This is Faraz Sidwa. He is the author of that article. Give a brief listen to this and listen to what he actually has to say.
And I don't think it's important to him. I don't think he cares if Palestinians are murdered like roaches and ants. But to the rest of Americans who have normal human values, they do care. And, one of the other things that Mark and I wrote in that piece is that the blood on the trauma bay floor and the operating room floor was dripping from our hands. And I think that's accurate. We provide the crucial military, economic, and diplomatic support. Your viewers are no surprise to that. And that makes us responsible. If our support stops, the attacks stop. If our support stops, the occupation stops. It's instant. It's been proven 100 times. It's not hard to see. And so that's what I would say to people is, if you want to stop participating unwittingly in some of the worst crimes that I've ever seen in my life, then you need to organize and you need to raise the cost to people like Joe Biden, because that is the only thing they care about. The U.S. is attempting to manage the Middle East with the system that I put in place since the Arab Spring, and the Palestinians are just kind of an annoyance to that system. So I would say to people that you know what's going on, so stop thinking about it all that much and just start acting. Go to your houses of worship, go to your community centers, go wherever it is that you go and talk to people and say, look, let's go talk to our congressman in person. Let's demand a meeting. If you're a veteran, put your uniform on and go. I've had several veterans.
I got to stop it right there because I literally can't take anymore. But notice how he used words like occupation. Those are all words that are being spread really hard by the pro-Palestinian agenda, often when it comes to lies and attempting to gaslight people about everything that's going on up over inside of Gaza. Now, this individual has also, he's also volunteered over in Ukraine, according to his own statements. I looked him up, wasn't able to see him commenting on Russian war crimes. So for some reason, he's commenting on pro-Palestinian war crimes for a narrative and pushing photographs that as I don't even know how to say this, but I don't feel like the New York Times even did the remotest amount of research or backpack, like no fact checking on what this guy wrote. They were just like, oh, he's a doctor. What he's providing is probably factual, and it's not. Those images do not depict gunshot wounds from snipers. It's not there. As a matter of fact, if you want to see X-rays of actual GSWs, post-mortem, I do have those as well, so that you can get kind of an idea for what some of that looks like. Give me a second here while I zoom in on them. Here you can see in these different X-rays, you have examples of actual damage going in and around the skull. All of that stuff we didn't really see in those X-rays provided. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't read X-rays for a living. It's not something that I typically do. This is an MRI and a CT scan, so it's showing a little bit of different, but it causes a significant amount of damage. And notice how most of these are straight through the skull. They don't stop in there. Nobody did the proper research before publishing in this article. Now they just pissed off a whole new set of individuals in this world based on bad propaganda. Somebody's letting all of these like Palestinian propagandists come in. Now, why do I say that? Because I also happen to find the same doctor that provided those images, believe it or not. Yeah, I found her too. The doctor that actually provided those images claiming that they were all gunshot wounds to kids and so on and so forth. The one that provided those images, guess what? I found her in a video as well. This is her working over inside of the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. And she put this video together. In conjunction with the Palestinian American Medical Association. And it is captioned with saying that Dr. Mimi speaks from Gaza, where she volunteered for a medical mission run jointly with JAPA and supported by Islamic Relief. Dr. Saeed is an emergency medical physician, and she highlights the tremendous toll and pressure on the medical facilities in Gaza, including the lack of basic medical necessities. Now, even over inside of that New York Times article, it says that lots of people were just scattered on the floor after operations and everything else, and that they had no room for people, that there was just children dying all over the place. Well, here you get an actual inside look at the hospital.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mimi Syed from the United States. I'm a board-certified emergency medicine physician. I'm here to provide medical relief to the people of Gaza, and I have come through PAMA and JAPA. We have seen so many cases here of unfortunate situations, atrocities, pure carnage, of many children, pediatric cases of burns, penetrating wounds, shrapnel cases. We have been doing our very best to provide medical relief to the patients, as well as some relief for the staff that have been working endlessly for 10 months in this situation. Where we've helped hundreds of kids here, as well as patients just here in Gaza at Nasser Hospital. The help that we can provide is immense, and this is all due to the help of Islamic Relief USA. We were able to assist with providing care for these patients. We're lacking very basic necessities, very basic medical things such as insulin. In the medical cases, we're seeing a lot of cases of diabetic ketoacidosis, which is very preventable if we had insulin. Because there's no refrigeration, patients are not able to take their regular insulin, which is such a basic need and easy fix. We don't have basic supplies such as saline or things for cleansing, no soap. We have to reuse a lot of vent tubing and nasal cannulas, and it's causing infections.
I hope you guys saw what I just did.
So if you are coming to help and provide medical relief, this would be an immense help to the people of Gaza.
You all see that guy just wheel in that kid behind her when she was talking and just dump his wheelchair off with a little girl. He stood around like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And then like looked around and then wandered off as if, oh God. Oh, my head hurts dealing with all of these people. By the way, what I told you about people making statements about treating kids on the floor of the hospital, no, that's 100% in this article. Pediatric gunshot wound patients were treated on the floor, often bleeding out on the floor of the hospital due to lack of space, equipment, staff, and support. There is another gentleman that references as well, Dr. Irfan Galaria. I performed surgery with primitive sets of instruments. There was no pain medication for dressings, changes, or post-surgical patients left on the floor. So those are statements from those doctors. Now, what do we know about the time frame when Mimi was over inside Khan Yunis? Well, we know that according to Doctors Without Borders, over 190,000 Palestinians actually evacuated Khan Yunis before the IDF entered it on August 9th. And again, she arrived on August 8th. So they were warned at the end of July, 190,000 of them left, according to Doctors Without Borders. Additionally, we know from a 2017 survey that was conducted that there was just a little over 200,000 Palestinians for a population inside of Khan Yunis, which tells us about how many people can hold. Now, granted, that information is almost a decade old, but it's Gaza. We don't really have a lot more going on. Plus, there's been a war taking place over there and people are pushed everywhere. So if the city's capacity was just over 200,000 in 2017 and over 190,000 left, I really don't think that many Palestinians were floating around in Khan Yunis when the IDF was going through there. And then it would lead me to question what Palestinians are remaining behind in that case when 190,000 decide to leave and only a couple thousand decide to stay behind. If you didn't know, 100% of Hamas inside of the Gaza Strip is Palestinian. So the fact that 190,000 Palestinians left Khan Yunis, yeah, makes you wonder who the remaining ones were. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. If you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Peace, love, happiness, and God bless. I am out of here.